Hello friends, for the upcoming UPSC preliminary examination, apart from the knowledge part, you need to learn some of the important skills in solving the questions to arrive at the right answers. For that purpose, we can take some of the previous year questions and how to arrive at the right answers through different approaches, right? We can go for the questions. So if you look at this question, right, here they are asking that in the tropical zone, the western sections of the oceans are warmer than the eastern sections owing to the influence of trade winds. Here the question is asking about the role played by trade winds in an oceanic area. And the second statement, in the temperate zone, westerlies makes the eastern sections of the oceans warmer than the western sections. So here the role played by westerlies and trade winds have been asked in two different areas, right? Here for this type of questions, you need to be very strong in your basics, right? You need to know about the direction in which the trade winds and the latitudinal position of these trade winds or westerlies should be definitely known, right? For this case, if you take the case of tropical zones, within the tropical zones, you know that across the equatorial latitudinal regions, trade winds are easterly winds, which are moving from east to west direction. So within the tropical zones, trade winds are moving from east to west direction. And these winds are permanent winds. So obviously, what role it could play on the oceans through which it flows over there? Normally, the top portion of the ocean surface is experiencing higher temperature. So the warmer water on the topmost surface of the ocean will be carried by the frictional force of these trade winds, right? So these trade winds carry the warmer waters on the surface from eastern side to western side. Why? Because these winds is an easterly wind. It moves from east to west direction. So in that sense, if you apply the logic here, what they are saying, in tropical zone, the western sections of the oceans are warmer than the eastern sections owing to the influence of trade winds. Here the statement is correct. In the same way, if you know about the position of westerlies, right? Position of westerlies is associated with the temperate zone. So from the name itself, you know that westerlies are moving from west to east direction, right? West to east directions. If westerlies are flowing in this way, means it carry the warm waters from west to east direction. So the role played by trade winds is exactly opposite in the temperate zone, right? Where it increases the temperature of the eastern portions of the temperate zone. Look at the statement. In temperate zone, westerlies makes the eastern sections of the ocean warmer than the western sections. So here you should be very careful about the directions which are mentioned in the statements, and you should know about the basics behind the role played by trade winds and westerlies. Here they have been clearly testing your conceptual understanding as well as application of those concepts and role played by these winds in the enhancing or decreasing the temperature of different regions on the oceans. So answer for this question is both 1 and 2, right? Second question. Here you just go through the statements. The Earth's magnetic field has reversed every few thousand years. It is a factual statement. If you know about the evolution of Earth, you can either know the answer or don't know the answer, right? You cannot apply any logics behind that. So if you know the answer, you can go for it. If you don't know the answer, just go for the second statement. What is mentioned in the second statement? When the Earth was created more than 4,000 million years ago, don't worry about the fact which is mentioned here. Just look about the concept behind the statement. More than 4,000 million years ago, there was 54% oxygen and no carbon dioxide, right? If you don't know the fact that how the evolution of atmosphere has been taken place right from the earlier atmosphere to the present day atmosphere, just wait for the moment. If you know the answer, you can go for the statement. But if you don't know the answer, you cannot dwell into any conclusion with respect to the fact mentioned in this statement. Then go for the third statement, right? In the third statement, they are mentioning that when living organisms originated, they modified the early atmosphere of the Earth. So for these two statements, you must know about the logic or you must know about the concept or content behind the evolution of Earth. But for the third statement, it is a very commonsensical based question. For any living being, you know that any living being are taking oxygen from the atmosphere and liberating carbon dioxide. In this way, obviously, they tend to modify the proportion of gases in the atmosphere. So, third statement is commonsensically correct statement. So, third statement has to be there in the answer. So, first statement based options will be eliminated here, right? Then, if you know that living beings are consuming oxygen and liberating carbon dioxide means, first carbon dioxide has to be there in the atmosphere, right? Then after consuming the carbon dioxide only, living beings grow. Then after that, as a result of enhancing, as a result of flourishing of more living beings on the earth, especially on the oceanic part, the atmosphere is flooded with oxygen. This is the way the transition has been happening. So here, if you look at the second statement, they are saying that in the early atmosphere, oxygen was more there, but not carbon dioxide. It is logically reversible, right? Abdi reversible irundha mattumda, the third statement would be right enough. So the third statement paves the way for identifying the concepts behind the second statement. If you don't know the fact behind that, you should not worry about the numbers mentioned in this statement. If your basics is strong, you can easily arrive at the answer. So third statement has to be there and the second statement should not be there. Second statement should have to be eliminated, right? So second statement eliminated now, you will arrive at the option C. So without knowing about the fact of first statement, you have arrived at the answer with the common sense, not about any geographical concepts, right? So for this question, just look up on the options, right? There is a tendency that if a statement has only word in its statement, obviously it could be wrong statement. But UPSC has not following this trend in the recent years. If you look at that particular tendency means, if you look up these two statements, both of these statements are having only in its content. So you cannot arrive at the answer by eliminating both of these statements. Every options are having either one or two. So don't delve into blind conclusion that extreme words like all or only or always been negative, right? So don't go behind that illogical conclusions, right? So if you look up on these statements, jet streams occur in the northern hemisphere only. If you know the basics that jet streams are one of the important factors behind the existence of permanent pressure belts and trade winds or permanent winds with respect to its existence, means you know that jet streams has to be present in both the hemisphere, right? So this is the test of a basic. So first statement should not be the answer, right? So you have to eliminate both A and D because it has one with respect to its options. Second statement, only some cyclones develop an eye. If you know the answer, you can go for it. But if you don't know the answer, just wait for the second statement, right? Because some cyclones means here they are talking about the tropical cyclones. Tropical cyclones only have the concept called as eye formation. It is not the case for temperate cyclones. Then go for the third statement. What is being mentioned in the third statement? They are saying that temperature inside the eye of a cyclone. This is the central portion of the cyclone, which is called as eye of the cyclone, and the surrounding region is called as eye wall. The temperature inside the cyclone is 10 degree. You should not bother about the number, right? The temperature inside the eye of the cyclone is 10 degree lesser than the surroundings. Means what they are saying, the surrounding is experiencing higher temperature and the middle region is experiencing lower region. Is it possible for cyclone to get originated when its surrounding is experiencing lower temperature? Not at all possible. If you know the basics behind the formation of cyclone, you can easily say that a center region which is experiencing high temperature would obviously experiencing low pressure. So the surrounding region, if it is experiencing low temperature means obviously it would have high pressure. So wind moving from high pressure to low pressure will result in the formation of cyclones. This basic thing is been alternatively given in the third statement. You should not bother about the number. You should compare with respect to the outer and inner region of a cyclone. So third statement is also factually wrong. You can obviously eliminate third statement. So you can finally arrive at second statement only, right? Third type of question. Here, what explains the eastward flow of equatorial countercurrent? You should be very conscious about the words mentioned in the question. If you assume that it is an equatorial current means you can arrive at the first option itself. Here they are not asking about equatorial current, they are asking about the equatorial countercurrent, right? So all of these statements are associated with the equatorial current as well as equatorial countercurrent, and some of the statements might be the right answer. If this kind of options will be given means you should not look for the right answer, you should look for the best among the statements. Best answer adha dhaan paakano. ஓகேவா? இதுல ரெண்டு ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட் ரைட்டா இருக்கலாம், பட் ரெண்டுல எது பெட்டரா பெஸ்டா இருக்கோ அதுக்கு தான் ஆன்சருக்கு போகணும், ரைட்? ஸோ ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட், the Earth's rotation on its axis. Earth's rotation on its axis is a basic fact and it is responsible for any ocean currents directional changes. So you cannot conclude with respect to the first statement alone. Maybe it is a right statement. Maybe it is right for equatorial current. Then go for the second statement. The convergence of two equatorial currents, right? If you know the fact that counter equatorial current is flowing as a result of the convergence of two equatorial currents, when any continents are present in its path, means you can directly arrive at the answer that the convergence of two equatorial currents have resulted in the opposite flow of counter equatorial current. But if you don't know the answer, means just wait for the, don't conclude into the second statement, right? Just go for the third statement. What is being mentioned in the third statement? The difference in the salinity of the water. Difference in the salinity makes difference in density. Difference in density allows the movement of any ocean water. So this is a very basic fact. This fact is applicable for any ocean currents movement. So this is also a right answer, but this is not the best answer. Go for the fourth option. The occurrence of the belt of calm near the equatorial region. Belt of calm is associated with the doldrums. Doldrums means low pressure region which are not at all been experiencing, which are not at all been experienced by the flowing of winds, right? So flowing of winds does not make any role with respect to the counter equatorial current, right? So among these options, if you have understood the logic behind the origination and flow of counter equatorial current, you should definitely arrive at option B, because this is the most comprehensive and collective answer, even though some of the answers seems to be right. This is a type of question which you need to go for the best among the options, not the right answer. Okay, wow. Then for another question, here they are asking about the characteristics with respect to laterite soils. If you know the characteristics of laterite soils, you can easily go for the factual informations. But if you know some basics about laterite soils, just go for the question. First statement, what they are saying, they are generally red in color. If you know, you can go for it. If you don't know, just wait for the conclusion, because both red soils as well as laterite soils are red in color. But if you don't know the factual information about laterite soils, means go for the second statement. They are rich in nitrogen and potash. This is a very hard fact to remember for any soils. So you cannot arrive at answer by remembering all of these hard facts, right? So you cannot conclude even with respect to the second statement. Then go for the third statement. They are well developed in Rajasthan and UP. This is the most important key factual information to arrive at the right answer. If you know that laterite soils are nothing but soils which are formed due to the leaching away of the topsoil material. Where that leaching would happen? A region which is experiencing higher rainfall as well as higher erosional. So obviously which region? And a mountain which is having a the slopes of the mountains which is experiencing higher rainfall would be subjected to the presence of laterite soils. So laterite soils are always present in the region of high temperature and high humidity regions. How come a Rajasthan, a region which is known for deserts, a common sense, right? Rajasthan nali palaivanam da. So Rajasthan la high rainfall illana, how come the presence of laterite soils is possible? Even you don't know the factual information about these both statements, you can definitely conclude with respect to the third statement. It is a very commonsensical statement. Just go for the third statement. Tapioca and cashew nuts grow well on these soils. Either you know about the characteristics of the soil, or you may not know about the characteristics of the soil on what crops which are responsible for the good. How come the soil is responsible for good crops to get cultivated? So by knowing a simple fact with respect to third statement, right? So 3 இருக்கக்கூடிய options இருக்கவே கூடாது. The options which are having third statement should not be there in the answer. Just strike out all the options which are having 3 within it, right? First statement should not be there, second option should not be there, fourth option should not be there. So among the 4 facts, just a common sensical information about one statement makes you to arrive at the answer through elimination technique. This is one of the easiest way of approaching a right answer. You cannot get confused with respect to the first 2 statements, right? So option C is the right answer. These are all the various ways through which UPSC tests the different dimensions of the topics what you have studied for the examination. So with this, we can conclude this session. So for the upcoming UPSC preliminary examination, we have planned a crash course for both general studies and CSAT. So we have planned to cover this entire course within 65 hours, whereas 50 hours is been allocated for general studies and 15 hours is been allocated for CSAT. We are launching this course on 7th of March 2023. In that, 10 hours is been allocated for entire geography. To make your preparation more effective, you can enroll this program. Thank you.